What's good? What's good, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of The Urban Platform Speaks. Make sure to like and subscribe as you tune into the channel. You check out the content. And with that being said, man, you see the title. The title is LeBron James learned the dirty trade secrets from the best in the entertainment business, right? And the more and more I look at basketball and the business side of it, the more and more it reminds me of how the record labels were run, right? And now that the record labels are basically phasing out and they're turning to like they're making their money in different ways. Basically, they just make money from touring and maybe merchandise and stuff like that. But you don't have they're not making like they used to, like people putting out albums and the albums selling, or CDs and the CDs selling. Like, so it's a whole change, right? Now I think the target now is going to be NBA and NFL athletes are going to be getting exploited basically the same ways that music artists used to get exploited, right? And so I have here on audio something, where they're talking about how artists in the music industry got exploited. And what I want to do is I want to play it because basically you can see the same things happening in basketball that happened in the music industry. Like, like you could have a big star like LeBron James, who been in the NBA for what, 21 or 24 years. And when you think about it, LeBron James really don't control his own image, right? Clutch, they don't really control their own image. It's the people behind them who control it. But they're allowing LeBron James and they're allowing Clutch to be out in front. And when this whole thing falls down and it falls apart, they're going to be the fall guys, just like Jay-Z, just like Puff Daddy. Those are going to be the faces of, like the faces of evil when everything falls apart. Now, not to say that Jay-Z and Puff Daddy don't have dirt on their hands, right? But it stops, like the buck stops with them. The buck don't go any further than them, right? So Rich Paul and Clutch Sports, they didn't really invent a new type of sports agency or anything. They basically just were trained and mirrored to do things the way that Rockefeller did things, or the way that Bad Boy did things, right? And just like the way that those businesses and record labels did business and they fell apart, I think it'll be the same thing with LeBron James, Clutch. I think they'll fall apart, especially once Clutch Sports or once LeBron James retired, right? And he won't have the impact on the sport the way he used to, and then they'll be on to finding another gatekeeper. So now, with that being said, let me let me play this audio of this from these people talking about record labels and how record labels exploited their artists, and you'll find that there are a lot of similarities, like in basketball.
Imagine you spent your whole life chasing your dreams, pursuing what you love, and becoming the world's next big thing, just to be exploited and left with little to nothing. Since the beginning of the music industry, major record labels have taken advantage of ambitious young artists, suckering them into contracts disguised as a gateway to fame, but ultimately leaving them shortchanged. Rappers have been no exception. The hip hop industry is often known for taking advantage of numerous young MCs who lack knowledge about money and law and left them stuck with some really bad contracts. My name is
All right, so you hear that, right? And see, that's what these business executives and these managers and everything, they play on the fact that, like he said, you know, your area of expertise is basketball, right? And so these athletes don't understand the business side of it. Just take LeBron James for instance, right? LeBron James has been famous ever since he was about 15 or 16 years old. But LeBron James, I think they say when he was 16, that's when he met Jay-Z, right? And so they put handlers and people, influential people around to kind of guide LeBron James into the direction that they wanted him to go. And so, and LeBron James even said himself that Jay-Z is a big influence on him and how he does business, right? And so Just think about how Jay-Z has done business. Think about some of the allegations against Jay-Z, right? And you have LeBron James, excuse me, you have LeBron James with like, questionable business practices. LeBron James with, certain allegations against him, and so it's really it's the whole thing. It's just this cycle is just repeating itself, but not in the music industry. Now it's in the sports industry, right? And so you're gonna see athletes who like the guy just said, they work all their lives to get to the NBA, get to the professional ranks, whether it's baseball, basketball, football, whatever professional sport here in America, right? They get there, and you just have these people just waiting for them to put them in situations where they just take advantage of them, uh, and like I said, a lot of times you don't get to see these guys in the background. I like, for instance, the guy, what's his name, Adam Mendelhoff, right? People really don't talk about him, but he's behind the scenes as far as like a business associate of LeBron James, but all we see is LeBron James, and we see Rich Paul. Sometimes we see the guy Maverick Carter, but you don't ever see, and it was another guy that was mentioned too, but you don't see these guys behind the scene. And so, like I said, when this whole thing collapses and it falls apart, which eventually it will, those names won't be brought up. Just like people really like Clyde Davis never really faced any serious legal issues like what Puff Daddy is facing, but yet they were boys. You know what I mean? They were tight, and some people accused, or alleged some of the same things against him, but he never was. Up until the day he died, he never even really was in any serious, uh, jeopardy of being prosecuted or anything like that. Like Puff Daddy is the face of evil now when it comes to the music industry.
Luesta, and these are the worst record deals we've ever seen through hip hop history. The horror stories of artists like Lil Boom, who took a ridiculous $7,500 advance and partially forfeited his rights, might lead you to believe that these atrocities could never happen to the biggest names in the game. However, cases like NBA YoungBoy prove that it doesn't matter how many times you're the number one streamed artist on YouTube, and that it makes no difference if you were roped into signing a bad contract to begin with. I'm sure you all know who NBA YoungBoy is. The Baton Rouge rapper took the world by storm with his gritty and painfully honest tales of his life in the streets, and has refused to let go ever since. He has more than 30 billion total streams and over 100 RIAA certified releases, including 3 platinum or double platinum albums. But despite his success, he's only received a fraction of the reward, cementing his story as a cautionary tale for artists on the come up. And yet, it's still not even close to the worst one in this video. Once young
All right, so if you listen to about NBA YoungBoy's story, right? And so you would say, well, how is that? How can you compare him to what's going on in the NBA? And all right, so they talked about NBA YoungBoys, his streams and everything, and how the platforms more so benefited from his streams more so than NBA YoungBoy. And that's what it is with like famous basketball players and famous athletes in general. They'll have millions and millions of followers, but they won't be able to capitalize on it like the sponsors and the people who are backing them, right? And so they'll get, and it's the same thing, they'll get a fraction of the of the money that they should get. What's happening is these guys don't know how to control their own brand, and then on top of that, they bring other people in to control their brand for them, and then they get shortchanged. And I talk about how LeBron James he's been receiving basically free advertising for 24 years, right? And then with that free advertising, it would seem that I think that if you do the right thing with that free advertising, you have the opportunity, plenty of opportunity to strengthen your fan base, right? Because that's where your value is as a professional athlete, is your fan base. Prime example is Magic Johnson, right? Magic Johnson is beloved by fans. So when Magic Johnson walks into a boardroom, he's bringing the millions and millions of fans that really love Magic Johnson. He's bringing them with him. And so that means that Magic Johnson has leverage. So if you wanted to use Magic Johnson to pitch one of your products or to pitch a service that you provide, then you're going to have to pay Magic Johnson a certain amount of money. But today's athletes don't really they don't know their wealth, I mean their worth, and so they don't capitalize on it. They just I think that especially when it comes to LeBron James, he fall more into the category of being polarizing, where you have to always be cautious and be aware of your brand and how you present yourself publicly, right? So LeBron James is polarizing, which that can generate attention, and it can generate it can generate some money. But when you wanted to become when it's time for LeBron James to step away from the NBA, and it's time for LeBron James to step away from these big corporations and businesses, like independently, LeBron James will have a hard time capitalizing on that fan base because it's limited, because he managed that fan base and he managed his brand in a way that he didn't maximize it, right? And so now he has less leverage. If LeBron James is not, if they can't use LeBron James in a way where he's being polarizing, then LeBron James won't be able to fully capitalize on his brand. And so that's why I think today's athletes are, they're concerned about their brand, but they're not managing their brand in the correct way. Like with Ja Morant, Ja Morant is very, he's famous, well-known athlete, but he has to be careful, right? Because and he's selling a lot of tennis shoes and sneakers and stuff like that, right? But he can't, because he's had some off the court issues, it'll be hard for him to market himself independently of the NBA. When I think that these athletes should take advantage of the fact that they're popular because of the NBA. NBA is putting them on, TV hundreds of times a year, and take and build that brand. So when you separate from the NBA, you can capitalize on your fame. And but they're not doing it. The NBA is, and the people around them are allowing them to be polarizing. They're allowing them to get in trouble because it really don't matter to them. You're just a storyline. LeBron James is just a storyline. A lot of the times we talk about LeBron James now, we're talking about him not for what he did on the court, like a shot, the clock's winding down and a shot he hit. We're not talking about him like that. Like him or somebody in his camp is saying something that is polarizing, and we're talking about it, and it's good for clicks and views. But once, like I said, once LeBron James separates himself from the NBA, then you got a lot of people out there saying a lot of different things. But once you separate from the NBA, then you're not as people don't really care as much about what you say. And a prime example of that is Dennis Rodman, right? Dennis Rodman used to say and do some outrageous things. And so while he was in the NBA, it was, it was big news. But now if Dennis Rodman say, something wild or do something outrageous, it's not as big a deal, because now they're on to the next, right? So like I said, LeBron just mirrored Jay-Z, who was trained by, uh some of the shrewdest record executives, to have ever lived. And it's just a cycle that continues, right? And now we're seeing it happen with basketball players and football players. They're just going to be a part of a new cycle where these guys need to watch how they manage their brand and their public image. So that's my take on it. Make sure to like and subscribe. Don't forget to leave a comment. And with that being said, man, I'm gonna check y'all out in the next video. Peace.